Good morning! Happy Earth Day! What's Earth Day, you say? Well, Earth Day is a really special day where we kind of talk about ways that we can be kind to our earth. We talk about recycling and all kinds of really cool stuff like that. So we're going to kind of forego our normal calendar and normal circle time. We're going to focus on a craft and some Earth Day things, but I do want you to know that today is Wednesday, April 22nd. April 22nd. All right, so we're going to start with a story to kind of get us thinking a little bit about Earth Day. And because I really love Curious George, I think he's really funny, but this story is called Curious George Plants a Tree. How can planting a tree help our earth? How can planting a tree help our earth? Something to think about. Curious George Plants a Tree. Remember, this is our cover. This is the back of our book. This is the spine of our book. Our title is Curious George Plants a Tree, and our author is Margaret and H.A. Rays. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Oh, let me put on my glasses so I can see better. Today was a good day to be curious. The man with the yellow hat was taking George to the Science Museum. The museum was one of George's favorite places. There was always something new to see and interesting to learn. Often there was a special exhibit. George wanted to know what it was today, but first he had to make his favorite museum stops. The rocket room, the mirror maze, and the butterfly space. Finally, George and his friends made it to the special exhibits room. The sign read, "How you can take care of our planet. Reduce, reuse, recycle." George learned many things. How all people, animals, plants, air, and water on the planet make up the environment. How trees help keep the air clean, and how people can help protect the environment from pollution and too much trash. Did you catch what planting a tree might help? George had a great time and didn't get into any of his usual mischief. As he and his friend were leaving, they bumped into the museum director. Dr. Lee looked very happy to see him. "How is my best monkey visitor?" Dr. Lee asked George. "I'm so glad that I ran into you. I wanted to tell you that we're having a Green Day rally tomorrow at the park." George was curious. Whatever a rally was, he was sure that the park was a good place to do it. "We're going to plant a truckload of trees and collect used paper for recycling," Dr. Lee explained. "We didn't have much time to advertise, but we need lots of volunteers. How would you like to help out?" There was nothing George liked better than to help. "What a great idea," the man agreed. "We'll be there." That night, George was ready to do his part for the recycling drive. He gathered every newspaper in the house. He stacked old mail on top of the papers. He piled empty cardboard boxes and food cartons on top of that. What a heap! What more could he add? George scratched his head, and then he took several books off his bedroom shelf. Just as George was about to add them to his recycling pile, someone lifted the books out of his hands. Not so fast, George, the man said. These books are made of paper, all right, but you can read and enjoy them many times. And when you're done, you can donate them to other kids or your library. Reusing is just as important as recycling. The next morning, George and his friend set out for the park with their wagon of neatly stacked paper. Suddenly, the man stopped and said, "Uh-oh, I forgot my gardening gloves. Go on without me, George. I'll be there soon." As George walked down the street, he spotted several newspapers lying about on his neighbor's front stoops. George had an idea. He had lots of room in his wagon. He could recycle all those newspapers. Do we think that's a good idea? I mean, it is newspaper, but And the newspapers were not the only things he could recycle. He noticed a stack of paper cups sitting on a table under a tree. So into the wagon they went. Uh-oh. So did a pile of magazines. And a heap of papers someone left on the sidewalk. George was happy with his great load at the park. And then he found Dr. Lee standing under a big banner. "Good morning, George," Dr. Lee said. "I'm so glad you came and brought all your friends." Look at all the people chasing George. "We need lots of help to get the job done." George turned around. He was surprised to see that so many faces did not look very helpful. They looked angry. The man with the yellow hat arrived just in time. He explained to the neighbors that George was gathering paper for a good cause, and they were no longer mad. They even stayed to help plant all the trees. Look at all the trees they're planting. "George, you saved our green day," Dr. Lee said with gratitude. "These trees will provide fresher air. And each summer we'll have more shade, which means we'll use less water to keep the grass green. Thank you." Being a monkey, George had known all along how important trees were. Look at him. He's hanging out in the tree, just like monkeys do. All right. Do you want to hear a few ways George suggests that we can be green? Miss Nicole wore a green shirt because of Earth Day. So George says we should use both sides of our paper. We do that at school sometimes. We practice our letters on one side and we practice our name on the other. So we use both sides of our paper. Oh, you can make your own playthings out of cardboard boxes. You should talk to your teacher about recycling. Do we have a recycling bin? We do. We put our construction paper in there when we're done cutting. We put lots of other paper in there. But should food go in our recycling bin? No. Oh, you can donate your books to a library like George. Donate your gently used clothing to a charity, or you could even pass it on to a friend. Oh, this is a big one at my house. Turn off lights. If you're not in the room, we should turn off the lights. Oh, here's a good one. We need to make sure that we turn the faucet off while we're brushing our teeth because we don't want to waste water that way either. And then, here's another good one. You can use old kitchen containers and utensils as sand and water toys. And you can use newspaper comics to wrap gifts for your friends. And then another one, you could plant a tree and watch it grow. You can do lots of things. There's tons of ideas right here. And I bet your mom or dad or grandma or whoever is watching with you can help you think of a few different things that you could do to help save the earth. So I brought a couple things. One of my kiddos loves to make things out of boxes. In fact, every time we get a package or an empty box, she says, "Oh, that'll be great for my rocket ship," or "That'll be great for my robot." Does anybody like to make things out of cardboard boxes? What could we make out of this box? Think about it. Something else that we like to use at my house, paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls. Caroline, can I see those scissors for a second? If I take my scissors and I cut it in half, now I have two. I could make binoculars. Instead of just throwing this in the trash, I could have fun with it for a while. So I could make binoculars. There's lots of other crafts that we can make using these, and I'm going to show you one of them later this week. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to these because I am sure that I can find something to do with them. Now, something I've been given as a gift before, you know, glass is something I bet your moms and dads don't want you handling, but we even should recycle glass. We should even recycle glass. My sister took a glass jar and she made a cool Christmas present for me. She painted it and then she put a stencil on, and inside the jar she even put some Christmas lights so that it'll light up and be really cool. But this was a recycling project. She found some things around, and guess what? She didn't just throw it away. She used it again. So I've got a little challenge for you. During our Zoom on Friday, try to bring something that you have recycled and used to make something fun. Maybe you made a robot out of a cardboard box. Maybe you made binoculars. Maybe you took a paper cup or a styrofoam cup and you made it into a duck. There's tons of ways that we can make things. You can even get an empty water bottle. Can I see that water bottle, Caroline? You can even get a water bottle and you could make a sensory bottle, and you could probably look up what you can do for those, but you put things inside there, and then when you shake it up, maybe it's food coloring or glitter or things like that, you can shake it up and you can watch what happens. There's lots of things that we can do. So I would love to see your creativity on our Zoom this week. Okay? Got it? And I'll remind parents later in our remind. Okay? But we're going to get to our craft time. But before we do, I see my friends sitting over here. What do you notice that's different? They're not in little cups anymore. So you weren't here when I switched them over, but this is a little piece of fabric, and all of the caterpillars, when they turned into their chrysalis, they formed their chrysalis up on top of the cup, and they're hanging on that little piece of fabric. In fact, you can see one of them is hanging a little too low. I hope that he's going to be all right. I think he will. But they're all hanging out in there, and the next thing we're going to watch for in about a week to 10 days, they'll start emerging, and there'll be lots of caterpillars in here. Now, in the bottom of my butterfly habitat, I have this little cup, and it's got water in it, and it's helping to give some humidity to inside our butterfly habitat. But after they start emerging, I'll put some sugar water in there, and they will come and land on this little cotton ball, and that's how they'll get some of their food. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, are you ready to make a craft? Well, our letter this week is Y, and our color is yellow. So we are gonna try to make a yellow duck. And I say try because usually this is what we make at school. But because we're not at school and Miss Nicole's not there to help you and we don't have all of our normal things, guess what? We're kind of going to improvise just a little bit. So In fact, what I did, we usually use a yellow plate at school, but what I did, I took a plate and I painted it yellow. So now I'm gonna fold it in half. Looks pretty much the same. This is a little bit of a smaller plate, but that's okay. Now I've got the body of my yellow duck, okay? So I have a little helper that's gonna help me with some of my cutting. You wanna know something really funny? I thought I had a piece of orange construction paper. So guess what I had to do? I had to paint a second plate. See, improvising, recycling, reusing, all of that. So what you're gonna do, mom or dad or grandma, draw your kind of your feet. And then you're gonna let your kiddo cut out the feet. And then I've kind of got a little beak here. And so you can kind of see the shape. And your feet don't have to be this elaborate, like I said. But Caroline's gonna cut out our beak and she's gonna cut out our feet, okay? While Caroline's doing that, I got a can just so I can get a good circle for my duck's head. And I'm gonna trace a little circle right here. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but I'm gonna trace my circle. And now Caroline's gonna cut out this circle in just a second as well. And Caroline, as soon as you get the feet cut out, got it? It's hard. You need a little bit of help?
Okay, I think I got it.
All right, so there's one foot. Okay. All right, keep going. So now I'm gonna take one of these little feet, and I kind of made almost like part of his leg, and I'm gonna staple it because I think it will hold better, but I'm also gonna kind of bend up right there. So I'm just gonna staple the leg part. Okay. You can kind of see what I'm going for there. All right, sister. Okay, now keep going with the beak. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing over here. So I'm putting the long part underneath. I'm gonna bend, and then I'm gonna staple again. All right, so now there's my little ducks, my yellow ducks, feet, his little webbed feet. All right, and Caroline did great with our beak. Now, Caroline, will you cut out the circle? That's going to be his head. It kind of does look like a puzzle piece. So Caroline is cutting out the circle for his head. And I do want you to try to let your kiddo do as much of the cutting, because the more cutting practice they get, the better. The more cutting practice they get, the better. And make sure our thumb goes in the circle, 2 or 3 fingers go in the large part, and our thumb is always facing up. Okay, so let's get that cut out, and then, good. All right, so now I'm gonna put our head right here, and I'm gonna staple. I know. If I can. All right. Now I'm gonna put Mr. Duck's beak on there, and I'm gonna kind of bend that out a little bit too. I'm gonna do one more staple. All right. And Caroline really wants to draw the eyes, but before we do that, I don't know if you've noticed, but our duck needs some tail feathers. So Caroline, I want to use your hand Okay, can you put your hand right here? And now I'm gonna trace her hand. So can you tell she's got her hand spread out? And I'm just gonna trace each finger. And grandma or mom or dad, this will be a little trickier to cut out, so I might recommend you cutting this part out. So I'm gonna cut this out really quick. And while I'm doing that, Caroline, if you want to find the marker over there and go ahead and give our duck friend, give him 2 eyes.
Give me a girl.
Well, sure, if you want to make your duck, your yellow duck, a girl.
Eyelashes.
Oh, our duck is going to have eyelashes. All right. So, I'm almost done with our duck's tail feather. So hopefully you are working along with me. Very cute. Okay.
There we go.
All right. And so now I'm just going to staple the tail feathers on. And there we have it. We have a little yellow duck. And this yellow duck is super special because it's got your kiddo's hand on there. If you have googly eyes, like we use usually at school, you are welcome to use those. But if you want to get creative, just like Caroline did, here's our yellow duck. And our yellow duck can even sit up and waddle. All right. Caroline, thank you so much for your help. Well, I hope that you have fun making your yellow duck. And don't forget, try to find something that you can use that's recyclable, that you can maybe turn into a toy or a game or a craft, whatever it is, okay? So I will see you on Friday. We'll have circle time. We've got another Y craft, but then we'll have our Zoom on Friday at 11:30, okay? See you on Friday, on Friday, on Friday. See you on Friday for letter Y fun.